Hello, 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 everyone. JLR Investigates. Come on in, come on in. We have some shocking new details out in this case that we've been following. Dealing with the Menards, and it's rest in peace, Menards. Authorities announced that the human remains found in the basement of their neighbors do belong to the Menards, the elderly couple. So our thoughts and prayers are with the family, the Menards, their friends, the neighbors, everyone, and also Cuddles. Cuddles, their dog. We've covered this case at the beginning stages. I think we were the first people on YouTube to talk about the case. And then we saw the craziness, the SWAT, zeroing in on their neighbor here. And we saw what was transpiring. We were live streaming. We didn't know what was going on. It was probably one of the craziest SWATs that we've ever seen, where they were, going into a home. I mean, they were tearing the house apart with their vehicles. They all had army suits on and everything like that. And then the feet cut off. But then we learned that the next day that he was pulled out of his basement. And we're talking about Mr. Sparks here, Michael Sparks, Michael Royce Sparks, 62 years old, neighbor, pulled out of his, I guess you would call it a basement, a bunker. Some people say there was a tunnel. And then we watched a little bit about the progress and everything like that. In the last day or two, they were talking about more human remains were found, and a lot of people were speculating out there whether there was more bodies in his basement belonging to somebody else. But I think it was just the Menard, Stephanie and Daniel, and their dog that were found in the basement of his home. Police gave a press conference, which we're going to share. We'll share the press conference. They just spoke just a little bit ago. They just spoke, so I was able to clip it up. A little bit of details. I didn't listen to it all, but what it appears is Sparks here called one of his family members and said that he actually killed, the couple. And then at that point, authorities went to go, talk to him, whatever like that, and he barricaded himself and took a gun down in the basement with him. And then they actually say that he tried to off himself, but the gun misfired or it didn't work. So he was trying to take his own life. But they took him alive, and now he's going to go through the process and everything like that. I do have one clip I want to share first. It's the neighbor speaking, kind of shows you a little bit about the scene and everything like that. He's in court, 2 counts of murder. He's going to go through the process. I'm not so sure about what charges he has in reference to the dog. I have to look on the court document. I'm assuming it has to be cruelty to animals, right? But this is just a sad story all across the board. Magnolia was in the chat. We were talking about the dysfunctional problems in that community there, whether the community should be shut down or looked at. Unclear about the motive. There's some rumors out there. It was over a tree. It was, over him angry at the lawsuits against the place. It seems like there has been a lot of different people moving in and out of this community in the last year, different personalities, and no one could get along. But we'll listen to this because we're going to follow this case through. Why did the neighbor do this to this elderly couple? It's just beyond me. It just shows that evil does exist in this world. I mean, for someone to just do any harm to anybody, period, is bad. But to a dog and an elderly couple, I mean, she was 73, he was 79. Is egregious as, it could be. Is it capital punishment? I don't know. But this is a report. I'm going to play this report, and then we'll do the press conference. This is a report kind of giving us a little bit up to speed. Not many media outlets are still talking about this in reference to, like, news reports. There's articles out there. You just Google. You can get an understanding. But we're going to play this clip, and then we'll do the press conference. We'll play the press conference that just happened.
Man suspected of killing a Redlands couple is set to appear in court tomorrow. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Kathy Vara.
And I'm Annabelle Sedano. Many questions about their disappearance still remain. NBC4's Macy Jenkins joins us live as some neighbors were finally able to return to their homes. Macy.
Good afternoon, Kathy and Annabelle. Well, listen, we've reported to you this over the course of the last week. On Friday, we told you here at the Olive Dell Nudist Ranch that authorities found remains under one of the homes. Now, investigators believe those remains are of Dan and Stephanie Menard, but at this point, they cannot say. Let's take a look at this new video taken earlier today inside of the Olive Dell Nudist Ranch in Redlands shows rubble left behind the gates where the mobile home of 62-year-old Michael Royce Sparks once stood. Now, 79-year-old Dan Menard and his 73-year-old wife Stephanie were reported missing by a friend last Sunday. Redlands police got a tip that Sparks was possibly connected to their disappearance. And on Thursday, an armored police vehicle tore down Sparks' home in an attempt to locate him. He was armed and barricaded in a concrete bunker under the home and arrested on suspicion of murder. Now, the Menards and their dog were last seen 9 days ago on a Saturday morning at their home here on the ranch. Stephanie's purse and both cell phones were found at the home along with their unlocked car. Police believe the Menards are no longer alive and that remains found so far belong to the couple, but the remains have yet to be identified. Next door neighbor Tammy Wilkerson, traumatized by the whole ordeal.
My front yard is a crime scene currently. When they took the battering ram to his trailer, everything fell over on my side, and they've displaced me. They've put me in a motel. I'm pretty sure I can go home tonight, but I can't. I can't see that. They may have taken it all away, but it doesn't change the fact of what happened there. That's still there. You can't haul that away in a dumpster. I didn't know him as long as everybody else here did, but the time that I did know him, I did care about him and I did love him. And this should have never happened. It's so senseless. And I just can't be there. And I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Again, the latest development here is that investigators say from between Friday and now they have found additional remains. They believe those remains to be of the couple, but they, of course, have not identified the couple. Now, we asked them if they believe that the bodies have been dismembered. They would not comment, just that they found those additional remains. Reporting live here in the Redlands this evening, Macy Jenkins, NBC4 News.
Feel very, very bad for the neighbor. You know, this true crime has devastating effects, ripple effects. The neighbor lives there, has to see all this, have to be reminded. I mean, imagine you having neighbors that were murdered by another neighbor and you have to see that or remember that. It's horrible. It's horrible. So I feel for the neighbors. I feel for everyone dealing with these type of situations. I can't imagine. Now, let's listen to the press conference because, again, there was conflicting information saying, oh, more remains, somebody else. It just seems like they found additional remains belonging to them, not remains belonging to anyone else. But authorities just a little bit ago gave a press conference. Let's get details. Let's get the goods. Let's understand what happened here so we can get as much information as possible on this terrible, terrible tragedy.
Thanks, everyone, for being here. We wanted to announce that this morning we did file murder charges against suspect Michael Sparks, 62 years old, of Redlands. The two victims are the Menards, Stephanie and Daniel. In addition to filing the two separate murder charges, we filed an allegation of special circumstances alleging multiple murders, in addition to factors in aggravation. My understanding is that due to some court process, he will be arraigned in person tomorrow. I want to say that from the beginning of this case, what we were impressed by were the community members, the friends and loved ones who were so concerned about the Menards that came forward to indicate that things weren't right. From there, obviously, Redlands Police Department took over, did a phenomenal investigation in terms of determining the status of the Menards, and then focusing in on a suspect and doing an investigation that was rather significant, starting last Thursday all the way through the weekend, that led up to where we're at today. I know our Victim Services Bureau has already begun to reach out to the next of kin to the Menards to let them aware of the process. In terms of what's going forward is obviously going to be very difficult, not only on the family members, but on the community where the Menards lived. We know that obviously is a factor for those individuals. I do want to thank Chief Tolber from Redlands Police Department and their entire investigative team for the work that they did. A very unusual case. They worked very quickly under conditions that were, in my opinion, unprecedented, to be able to bring some humanity to the Menards, and obviously at this stage, in filing charges, pursuit of justice on our behalf. I also want to thank one of my colleagues, Supervising Deputy District Attorney Lisa Crane, who was present just over to my right, who was out there throughout the weekend, being able to assist in terms of what this case was going to turn into and understanding where this case was going to go, ultimately giving us an opportunity when it came in after a holiday weekend to be able to make what, in our opinion, is the right factual and legal decisions in terms of the filing and going forward from there. So, Lisa, thank you very much. As it relates to the rest of the investigation, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Tolber to fill you in, and then if there's any questions in regards to the process or filing, I'm happy to answer those when the press conference is over. So, Chief, it's all yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Rachel Tolber. I'm the Chief of Police at Redlands, California. And I'd like to start by extending our condolences to the family and friends of the victims. We're mourning with the community over the homicides of Dan and Stephanie Menard. As you all know from the information that's already been provided, this case began a little more than a week ago when Dan and Stephanie Menard were reported missing on August 25th from their residence at Olive Dell Ranch in Ritchie Canyon. Redlands Police immediately followed up on the missing persons report with an extensive search of the hills and canyon area around the ranch. During the follow-up investigation, RPD teams returned to Olive Dell Ranch on Thursday, August the 29th to conduct additional investigation and to talk to the Menards' neighbors once again. It was while our teams were on site that the police dispatchers received information from an individual identified as a family member indicating that the suspect, Michael Sparks, was involved in the disappearance and had admitted to killing 2 people and was threatening suicide. Redlands Police immediately locked down the property and began the search for Sparks, narrowing the search down to his home, which happens to be next door to the Menards. Because we had information leading us to believe that Sparks was potentially armed and barricaded, we called in additional assets to ensure the safety of our officers as well as the public. Following long hours and multiple efforts to contact Sparks with no response, we obtained a search warrant and used a drone to first enter the property. That search was unsuccessful, and believing that Sparks and possibly the Menards were still on the property, we used a TAC cat to breach the property and continued to search using remote cameras for safety reasons. Eventually, search teams located Sparks in the subterranean basement. He was in fact armed with a rifle, which he attempted to fire in an effort to harm himself, and the weapon misfired, and Sparks was subsequently taken into custody. Over the next 4 days, law enforcement teams have searched the suspect's property, ultimately locating the remains of 2 people who we believe to be Dan and Stephanie Menard, along with other evidence. The search of the property was completed yesterday. I'd like to acknowledge the work of the men and the women of Redlands Police Department who did an incredible job from the initial search for Dan and Stephanie Menard to the successful completion of the investigation. I'd also like to thank our partners from other agencies who worked alongside Redlands PD, including CAL FIRE, the American Medical Response, and I'd like to thank the Redlands Fire Department who provided personnel trained in confined space operations that made it possible to enter the subterranean space and recover victims along with other evidence. I also want to thank various city crews who assisted, from the wastewater crew who used their specialized equipment to provide us with a look into the crime scene, and the city building engineer who evaluated the structure to ensure that it was safe to enter. I also want to thank our law enforcement partners from both the Riverside County Sheriff's Department and the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, the California Highway Patrol, the San Bernardino County Coroner's Office, and of course, the San Bernardino County District Attorney's Office. And I would also like to thank those members of the media who've assisted us in keeping the public informed throughout this investigation as it progressed. Thank you for your time.
Questions?
At this time, if anybody has any additional questions, they will be vetted to the appropriate personnel. Go ahead, Rob.
I have a question perhaps for the police chief. Do you know if the coroner has positively identified the remains yet? And is there any possibility that the human remains are in addition to Dan and Stephanie, potentially other people?
I do not know at this time if the coroner has positively identified the remains. I would have to defer that question to them. And at this time, I don't have any reason to believe that there are other remains, but again, I would have to defer that question to them.
On that, is there any reason to believe there could be other victims?
I have no reason to believe that at this time.
There you go.
Were the bodies fully intact, or can you talk about condition of the bodies?
As this is an ongoing investigation, I'm not going to speak to the condition of the bodies at this time.
Were there any weapons that were found in that basement?
Again, based on the fact that this is an ongoing investigation, I'm not going to comment on that at this time.
Do we have any idea, has he said anything, or do you guys have any idea of what exactly happened? Like, were they killed immediately on Saturday, or do we know how long they've been down there? I'm just looking for...
So again, as I've said previously, this is an ongoing investigation, so I can't comment on that at this point in time.
Yeah, but you said it for other questions, so...
Certainly, and I'm happy to answer in that manner, but it is still an ongoing investigation, so I'm not going to comment on that at this point in time.
Okay, well, maybe this is a better question for the DA then. Why would you guys give this special circumstance then if we don't have any information on exactly what happened?
Well, we know they're dead, and we know there's 2 victims, and so the special allegation that we filed is multiple victims in a murder case. Every murder case is serious, but we've always felt that under certain circumstances, and certainly in this instance, where the indication is you find 2 people under the home of the suspect, that is appropriate for multiple victims in terms of special circumstance. I mean, we have a saying, and I don't say it lightly, but I want to say it clearly, is that you don't get a free murder. And in this case, that we believe that we can go forward and prove that Mr. Sparks is responsible for both. So that's why the special allegation there. It's sort of aside from the questions you were asking earlier in terms of why and how. We do know we have 2 dead folks. So that's why the allegation is there.
Can you, as much as you can, describe that subterranean area, and if you can reveal, where the bodies were? And was that area newly built?
I don't believe it was newly built. It's essentially what you have is sort of a homemade basement type area underneath the structure. So in some regards, perhaps unusual, but in other regards, that wouldn't necessarily be unusual. It's the person's parcel, and they can do what they want with it. But that was what was underneath, and I believe that was the concern about anything structurally that might have happened. Who knows how well it was built, but that was the condition that law enforcement met when they started to find the bodies.
Has Michael Sparks been cooperative in the investigation?
I'm not going to comment on anything that he may or may not have done. They made an arrest on Thursday, and we're proceeding with the charges.
When you first spoke, as you opened this news conference, you described this as a very unusual case. What makes you say that?
Because you have a community that, for all intents and purposes that we've seen throughout the week, is a very tight-knit community. Obviously, people were very concerned about the Menards. There's been vigils that have been held there. But when you look at the circumstances of an elderly couple who it clearly was a sign of trouble that they were not where they were expected to be by their loved ones on the Sunday, and then you find their remains underneath a house in the same community, double murdered elderly people by a 62-year-old defendant, that's pretty unique.
How long do you think they have been there for?
I do not know. I think obviously when the coroner and the pathology is done, there'll be a better idea of what we're talking about in terms of time frame. But again, for our purposes, in terms of understanding that they've both been killed, that's what is most relevant to us in terms of the charges.
Could you say that this was premeditated?
Would not be able to say that at all, no.
We haven't seen the complaint, but I'm sort of wondering if some of them, I guess, there was tension between them and some argument over something in the tree. Do you have
Tree.
any further information on that?
I do not have any further information on that. I don't know if that's something the chief wishes to speak to. Nothing in the complaint. Our complaint contains the 2 substantive charges, count 1, count 2, the special allegation in terms of multiple murder, and then as required by law in California, we also add factors in aggravation that we think are present that we would have to prove at a later stage. We don't get into the whole, your question is a good one, but we're not required to do that in terms of the process, and that's probably not even something I think that we would comment on at this point.
Chief, do you have anything to add?
To the same point, we're still investigating that to be able to answer that question for you. So at this point, we're not going to be able to comment further on
So
that.
at this point, you don't know anything about the relationship, and also you don't know what the motive was.
Correct. So I know that they were neighbors, but I can't speak to the motive at this point.
Well, Chief, this is your community. I mean, you guys worked so hard on this. I was out there, You know, I know that from Sunday to Thursday. Is there anything that you wish to say to the people of Redlands about how seriously you took this, or any thoughts on these sort of heinous allegations?
Oh, absolutely. Like I started with condolences to the family, but also a big thanks to echo Mr. Anderson's comments on our community that stepped up, that reached out, that communicated with us throughout the investigation. We took it very seriously, as you know, from being out there and knowing that we were out there continually from Thursday on. Like I say, I'm very thankful for all of the partners, including our community, that came together to be able to see the investigation through to fruition.
Have you seen anything like this before, or do you have any thoughts on this?
Certainly, it is I'm not sure that I've ever seen this type of case. It is certainly concerning, and I'm thankful for my partners here who spent the weekend with us, sorting through the case and through the investigation, that they'll be able to bring some justice for the Menards.
Just to clarify, so he had texted his own family members, correct? That he was going to commit suicide, or possibly commit suicide?
Somebody who identified themselves as a family member, yes, he had reached out to them.
And it was
with
just
that
one
information.
person?
I believe that there may have been other people that were texted, but the initial call that started our focus on him was from a family.
Is there any why his vehicle was found? Why the vehicle was found? Like, had the Menards been driving it at all? I mean, that's just a weird piece of the puzzle where it's just found abandoned a half mile down the road. Do we know why the keys were still in the ignition? Were they trying to get away, maybe?
I don't have the answer to that right now.
Chief, there was also a missing car.
Dog.
Is there evidence of the car where?
Sorry, there's two questions that were asked.
Sir, go ahead.
You asked about the update on the dog. At this time, we have no further information on the whereabouts of the dog, no.
Is there evidence of the car, where the car was found, the foul play, blood, or anything like that, anything they've been killed there?
No, there's not.
All right, that's going to be the conclusion of our press conference today, you guys. Thank you so much for attending. I am going to be releasing the complaint shortly thereafter, as well as the court case number and follow-up on arraignment dates. So thank you so much for your time today.
Is there a Spanish speaker for the moment?
I can arrange that for you if you just want to hang up for a minute. Thank you.
All right, let's talk.
Yes, that's our understanding, Rob. Yeah, tomorrow morning, in person.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
thank you, guys.
Thank you guys so much.
All right, so actually, a neighbor reached out to us and told us first. I'm gonna get Magnolia in the chat with us. So Magnolia, come on in the chat, because the neighbor actually reached out to us. The dog was found before the couple, according to a neighbor that was on the scene. So I don't know what they're saying about no comment here. But one thing that was interesting about this is, hello Magnolia.
Hi.
Come on in. So we were told that the dog was found too, correct?
Yeah, the dog was the first body that they found. I forget what day it was now. The morning that they went in there, after they had arrested him overnight, they arrested Sparks. They tore the house down, got in there, arrested him. Then that next morning when they went back there, they had to first kind of work to make sure the scene was safe for authorities to go in there because of all the damage. And when they first went in there pretty early in the morning, a cadaver dog found Cuddles pretty quickly. It was that morning that they found Cuddles. And then at the same time, the cadaver dog hit on another spot that they believed to be human remains. But they couldn't get to that spot just yet because they had to keep working to make sure it was safe for them to go in. So once they did that work, later that day, hours later, is when they found the couple. So the cadaver dog found Cuddles first.
Yeah, so, that's, it's because I'm shocked that they didn't really say that. or they're just playing coy, or they don't really want to talk about it. It's common sense, though. I mean, as they said about the bodies here, it's common sense that the bodies are them. It's just they just got to get confirmation. But they know because he's charged with the charging documents and stuff like that. But it's interesting. My thoughts on this is, it seems like the defendant is not cooperating because they are not revealing a motive here, and it seems like the way they're saying is they don't know. Like, they don't know when they died, and they don't know how. I don't know. I don't even know if they know how they died, and they don't even know, like, what was the motive here.
Yeah, I mean, they'll have to. Yeah, as far as the motive, I don't know if they really even know why he did this, but as far as the identification, I mean, yeah, it's them, but they still have to go through the process of doing the official testing, identification, and on all those things. So that may take a while too. And then also, as part of that, as part of the autopsies and different things that they do, they'll hopefully be able to determine a time of death or an approximate day time of death. So I think that is information that will be forthcoming once they have these tests completed.
Yeah, and, it could be over a tree. There's some people saying there was an argument over a tree. It could be over lawsuits. It could just be this guy was delusional, and he just, we don't know yet. But I want to know, though. I want to know. But it seems like, according to California, their charging documents, they don't have to say that in the original charging documents. They just charge him with the murder, and that's it, without any specifics, in a sense of knowing why. Another thing I thought that was interesting is, imagine, because they're in the basement. Imagine if he never talked to his family member and confessed to them. Authorities could be still out there looking for this couple.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's his own family that turned him in.
Well, I think, to me, it seems like this guy is a true psychopath. And the way the neighbors describe him is very interesting, because a lot of them said that they were shocked that he was arrested, and they didn't think that he was even capable of such a thing, because they said that he was soft-spoken, he kept to himself, he wasn't somebody that was known to harass people. But then you talk to other people and they say, well, he was a grumpy man, and he would yell at people sometimes and things like that. So it's really hard to gauge, because one thing we noticed during all this, there is a lot of turmoil in that nudist ranch. I mean, you don't even have time. It would take like a month to explain it all. It's just been nonstop turmoil since last October or so. And so there's all these different disagreements and bickering back and forth, and then somebody said it's about the tree, and I don't know about the tree, but it's clear that there's a lot of issues in this place. And I just feel like this guy, to kill a dog, first of all, to kill a little dog like that, I mean, you have to be a psychopath. So it could just be that he's unstable. Now, the other thing that you said, yeah, he called his family and he told them, allegedly, he said that he killed these two people, and that he was going to kill himself. So that goes again to his mental instability. It sounds like he was having some sort of breakdown, and he called his family. He even tried to kill himself when the cops came. He
tried to, right when they were about to get him and arrest him, he tried to off himself to avoid accountability. He didn't want to be taken alive. And it didn't work, so they got him taken alive.
The gun misfired. So, yeah, he was found with a rifle, and he was going to shoot himself, and then the gun misfired, and they arrested him. So, so that just, the phone call to the family, he's about to commit suicide, he barricaded himself in this bunker, he wouldn't come out. That just goes all to mental instability, and unfortunately, it's one of those cases where we may never understand why he did it because of that.
Yeah, exactly. But we'll be on it. Well, we don't know when some charging, when some court documents come out or any more information, we'll definitely share. But I felt like we should come on and at least share the press conference today to give us a little update. They do a lot of patting on the back, and they all like to say a lot of times in these press conferences, we can't talk to, protect the integrity of the investigation, or it's still an open investigation. But we got a little bit of insight, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So
at least like you said, they were found, and this didn't drag out forever. But it is horrible to listen to the neighbors and how this affected them, because like that lady said on the news clip, she doesn't even think she can go back there, and now she doesn't know what she's going to do, because it's too difficult. It's extremely traumatic for this whole community.
Yeah, me, if I was living there, I'd get right out of there in ASAP, just a reminder or whatever like that. You have to look at that every day, it's just, it's horrible. It's mentally, seeing something like that and knowing that exists right there where you lived, I would move ASAP. But some people can't. They can't afford to move, or they might be locked in a lease or whatever. And then this place might say, no, you can't get out of your lease.
Yeah, but I'd probably try to move on myself.
Unless people have home ownership there, though. It's a community, right? You buy a home right there, right? I think it's a combination. You also can rent there too, right?
Yes, you can go there and rent like a vacation, like for a couple days at a time if you want to.
So the moral of the story is love your neighbor. I personally think he probably lured them over there, which is even more scarier. And I personally think that they were in there maybe days alive, which is horrifying.
Yeah, I think that is possible, just because of the fact that it's an underground concrete bunker. So whatever happened in there would not have been heard.
Yeah, doomsday guy, Silence of the Lambs. One of those type of weirdos out there. All right, anything else to add?
No.
Appreciate the insight. Thank you. All right, folks. So we'll keep on this. Anything else breaks on this case, additional press conferences, any more details or information, anything newsworthy, we will share with all of you. Praying for the Menards, praying for the neighbors. Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you're a neighbor and you want to speak, or you want to set something, share, set the record straight, or whatever, tips at JLR Investigates. Love to hear from you. On the record, off the record. We just want to know more about what happened here. Definitely want to know what's the motive here. So, all right, folks. JLR Investigates. We cover true crime 24/7, 365. Thanks for watching this particular segment. Love your dogs. Love your neighbors. Be kind. We'll talk soon. JLR Investigates. Stay safe.